Welcome to the Interaction Associates Forum. Our mission at Interaction Associates is to help people work better together. So we're here today to bring you conversations, ideas, and new tools that will help you to lead better, collaborate more effectively, and get you success in your results, your processes, and your relationships. Today, we're talking about collaborative intelligence, which is the degree to which you're able to work successfully with others to produce something useful. I'll let our guests go into more detail for you in a few moments. Speaking of our guests, our panel members today are Barry Rosen, the CEO of Interaction Associates. Good morning, Barry. Nice to have you.
Yeah.
And Susan DeGenering, longtime senior consultant for Interaction Associates and the founder of Still Mind Coaching Solutions. Good morning, Susan.
Hey, Rachel.
So delighted to have you both with us. This conversation is an introduction to our upcoming free webinar series on collaborative intelligence, in which we'll dive very deeply into what collaborative intelligence is and how you can gain skills in the core competencies associated with it. So let's get started. Could each of you briefly introduce yourselves and just tell us a bit about your background in relation to collaboration and learning development?
Okay, well, I'll start us off with that, Rachel. I've been working in the field for a long time, for 40 years. And the first time I got involved was trying to figure out how to have people who are working on urban issues to come together to figure out how to solve problems at the city level. And I got this concept way back then. I didn't get it myself, but I was taught it by David Strauss, who is the founder of Interaction Associates, to make the distinction between process and content. And that changed my world, that process and content distinction. I wanted to do that work. And over the last 35 years, I've been working with companies all over the world to help them collaborate better. And now we're exploring the whole idea of collaborative intelligence. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm just really happy to talk to you about it and with Susan.
Thank you, Barry. We're so happy to have you. And Susan, how about you?
Yes, well, 40 years, that's good. That's about as long as I've been in the game. In addition to being a consultant with Interaction Associates, and I was also the former director of product development there, but I'm also an Enneagram coach for leaders and teams, as well as a mindfulness teacher. So, all these things have something in common, and that speaks to my real interest in human behavior and what makes people tick. So with all those roles, I'm helping people become more aware of their own collaborative natures, really, whether as a leader or a team member. And so seeing their personal blind spots or habits that block their collaborative capability, helping them reach their highest aspirations as a person, a whole person on the job, and developing the skills to work better with other people.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think it's fair to say we have an incredible amount of experience and wisdom represented on this call. So let's dive in. And this first question is for you, Susan. How would you define collaborative intelligence?
Well, we always like to talk about the etymology of a word or where they come from. So the definition of intelligence is the ability to apply knowledge and skills. And in this case, it's the skills needed to work successfully and in a sustained manner with others in pursuit of something. But in our definition, we've added a qualifying phrase that really makes all the difference. We're talking about working in a way that achieves mutually beneficial outcomes and satisfaction for everyone involved. So, what does that mean? What does it matter? I mean, it sounds kind of Pollyanna-ish, but, in today's I like to call it the multi-workforce, multi-generational, multinational, multiracial, multiple identities, people with multiple differing kinds of work experience. aiming for those mutually beneficial outcomes really only makes sense because you want to, keep people engaged, keep people committed, keep people giving their discretionary effort, not just, quiet quitting. And to do that and keep your talented workforce and retain your best people, we want to be valued, respected, and that's what working towards mutually beneficial outcomes, mutuality, I'd say, rather than exclusivity. Besides, organizations should want to avail themselves of the full spectrum of experience by collaborating with each other. So that's our definition: collaborative intelligence, working better together.
Thank you. And I love that distinction of the mutually beneficial outcomes.
Yeah.
Connects, I think a lot of what you were talking about connects with my next question for Barry. Barry, can you discuss the origin of this concept and how it's evolved over time?
Okay. Well, the concept of collaboration has been around forever. I mean, we were built with certain capabilities. We evolved as a species because of our ability to collaborate with each other. So collaboration has been happening for a long time. The concept of collaborative intelligence, I think, first started with the idea of the human-computer interaction. And so using the combined intelligence of artificial means and human means, like crowdsourcing, or the use of knowledge management systems to collect a lot of information that humans could use. More recently, it's been used around how people, as Susan was talking about, how people work together to solve problems and to use their individual skills as a collective. And we've drawn, and using this concept of collaborative intelligence, insights from a lot of different disciplines: sociology, organizational behavior, psychology, all to understand how people optimize their ability to work better together. So that's a little bit of the history.
That's great. And again, I'll kick this back to you, Barry. So why is that particularly important in today's work environment?
Well, a lot of people have been using the term VUCA, volatile and uncertain and complex and ambiguous. These situations that we have in the workplace now, also just taking a look at what's going on in the world. We have a lot of conflict, and our technology, our artificial technology, has developed faster than our human interpersonal, say, technology, our capabilities just to have decent conversations and solve problems together. So we have to catch up. And it's not like we don't have that capability. We have the capability, but we have to develop it. So we all have the ability to work better with others. And the idea is now, in order to catch up with that technology, we have to develop those skills. That's why it's important.
I think it's such a good point that we have to catch up. We have to keep moving as quickly as the technological advancements. Could either of you provide some real world examples for our listeners where collaborative intelligence perhaps has been crucial in a project or an organization's success?
Well, I can give one example with one of our clients at IA is WL Gore. They're the folks who created Gore-Tex, and talking about, Barry, you were talking about sort of the long history and evolution of collaboration. Gore consistently shows up as a list of one of the 100 top organizations to work with, and it's because since they were founded in the 1950s, since then they have operated in a flat team-based structure. without formal chains of command. And was all designed by Bill Gore to encourage innovation through collaboration. And they're highly successful. They have 10,000 employees now across 30 countries. And when you ask people that work there, how is it different working here? I did this about a month ago from other places. They'll say they feel respected, they feel valued, they're trusted, they're treated with consideration. One of the key qualities that we think collaborative intelligence, when embodied, people have, and that people are oriented to help each other be successful. So I think that's one of the organizations that I've worked with over the years with IA. That one really exemplifies to me collaboration in practice.
That is a striking example. I didn't know they've been doing that since they originated. Thank you for sharing that. Are there other examples before moving on? Barry, you've got
Well, one that we've all been hearing about on TV and podcasts, et cetera, is what happened in New Jersey when the bridge came down, and there was a real disaster, a fiery collapse of a bridge, and the
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Where did I say?
New Jersey.
That's because I'm from New Jersey, and it's right near there. But anyway, in Pennsylvania. So Josh Shapiro is the governor there, and they put back up that bridge component of I-95, which is one of the busiest highways in the United States, and they did it in 12 days. And I was listening to him talk about, well, what really was the critical success factor? And he said it was collaboration, that they brought together like 20 different agencies in order to build agreements about how they were going to go about it. I mean, it was a problem that everybody wanted to solve. They brought together the labor unions with state agencies, everyone working together for that common goal to get the traffic flowing in a safe way on I-95. So a lot of assumptions were put away that the unions couldn't work effectively with the agencies. They couldn't do it in a timely fashion, but they all worked together to get it done. And it wasn't just the attitude that we have to work together. It was the skill set of solving problems together. Like there was one thing that I recall happened was that they didn't know whether they would be able to get the asphalt dry enough in order to paint the lines on the road. And they asked the leader of Pocono Raceway for some of their equipment, their drying equipment that they use on the racetracks for the race cars, and they used it on the highway. So everyone was coming together to solve that problem, and it was a great example of collaboration and the intelligence you require to get something done so quickly.
Thank you. I love the spectrum of those two examples and how clearly it articulates really what's possible when you have these kinds of skills. And this might relate, Barry, to the next question I have for you. I've heard you talk about collaboration like a muscle at times. Can you say a bit more to help our listeners? What does it mean to exercise the collaborative muscle?
Okay, well, we use the idea or the metaphor of muscles like muscles in the body. And in the body, we have like 650 muscles, and they're divided into groups, like 11 basic muscle groups. And 4 of them are in the arm, and 3 in the leg, and 4 in the core. And it's really useful to know what your muscles are in different parts of your body and to stretch them before you do work. And also, it's easier then to develop balance if you know where those muscles are in your body. So with collaborative intelligence, we've identified 10 muscle groups or competency clusters, including listening as an ally, speaking with impact, guiding a synergistic conversation and building a sound agreement. And using them all together enables us to do more complex things like reconcile a difference with a colleague or a team. So you have to develop different muscles, like in the body, or like your arm muscles, just to lift something heavy off a table. The same way you have to develop those muscles, those collaborative muscles, to do a complex task, like solve a very difficult problem.
That's very clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for people interested in working these muscles out, Susan, can you give us a couple of practical techniques that might enhance their collaborative intelligence or their muscle strength?
Sure. Yeah, collaboration is all about relationships between people. And it can often be a hot cauldron, especially when you're under pressure or high scrutiny, like the people who are rebuilding the bridge in Pennsylvania, for example. And so two things I recommend, and one of them comes from our muscle group of Expand Your Awareness, which is one of our competencies. And so it's cultivate your own self-awareness. So we all get triggered, right? In meetings and by things other people do or say. We've all been in meetings together in this group here. And we're in meetings all the time. Or we're just tired and burned out and we get triggered. So people really can collaborate much better when they have the self-awareness to manage their own personal triggers, like those, knee-jerk reactions that happen in a nanosecond. And then you say something that you wish you could take back, or you wish you could call back that email or whatever. So learning about your own most common trigger points or habitual reactions is really helpful. And to do that, one great thing is to develop a breathing practice, breathing evenly in and out for 4 or 5, to a count of 4 or 5, let's say. They know now from so much research that it's proven to calm the nervous system and counter those knee-jerk reactions. So that's one thing. And secondly, the other one comes from our listening as an ally competency, which is know that your own perceptions or your own opinions, for which we are, and I'm the first to admit it, highly identified, are not often the truth, but we treat them as if they are the truth. They're only the truth from your own viewpoint. So the recommendation is just really be curious about how other people think and feel and seek to understand. Hold your own opinions to the side and just ask some good questions, because it's often, in those differences between us where the most creative and useful outcomes arise. Two quick things.
I love those. I don't know if anyone else was. I started breathing in and out when you were describing that. So I love how easy to apply those examples, where I know that I can start doing more of that today. So thank you. This has been so great. I feel like we've talked about what collaborative intelligence is, a little bit about how we can get better at it. Now I want to kind of guide us into the future. And so Barry, this next question is for you. How do you imagine the concept and the practice of collaborative intelligence developing over the next decade?
Well, first thing is, I think the phrase collaborative intelligence is going to become part of our popular vernacular, similar to emotional intelligence and social intelligence. This intelligence has to do with actually working better with people so that we can achieve mutually beneficial outcomes. Okay, that's what it is. And as people become more familiar with the uses of artificial intelligence and communicating their needs to machines, which we do, we've already do that a lot, we'll also be required to better communicate our needs with other human beings so that we can together fix problems that will achieve a mutually beneficial outcome. The problems of not just in our companies, but in our communities and with climate change, for example, we are going to have to come up with some very creative solutions. So we'll start fighting with each other, but underneath that fight is a desire we have as human beings to survive. And we also, when we look at the psychology of humans, we do like to help each other. So collaborative intelligence is going to become part of the popular vernacular. And I think that it's going to become part of a more dedicated learning that happens in schools with kids and moving its way up to companies and government.
Well, I like that vision of the future because you're right. We have some really complex challenges in front of us, and we will need to use all of our tools. And that connects actually to what I want to ask you, Susan. How do you think we might partner? You know, Barry mentioned AI and all of that new technology, as well as our own collaborative intelligence between humans. But how could we partner with those technological advances to collaborate more effectively?
Well, following on what Barry said, what's so interesting about the evolution of our capabilities as a species happen in response sometimes to crises or emergencies. And, the pandemic really accelerated the development of meeting platforms like Zoom, for example, and collaborative platforms like Miro. They were there before, but they became adopted. And those are AI enabled platforms. So we're already doing that. And but now, with ChatGPT exploding on the scene and offers many other supports to help people work better together. Like, we work with lots of global teams, and ChatGPT, those people the teams can come from, 4 or 5 different nationalities speaking 3 or 4 native tongues. And so ChatGPT can simultaneously translate. I mean, that is a huge thing right there. And I expect we're going to see that being used more and more often in the future. But beyond that, I mean, I think it can really help teams and organizations, and especially these multi-sector collaborative endeavors like Barry was talking about in Pennsylvania. AI can help teams rapidly adjust their work processes or procedures, and to respond to the shifts in the economy, whether it's competitive or a crisis. And that rapid adaptation means that the human beings who are working in those systems have to adapt rapidly, and that means collaborative intelligence needs to be heightened and at the fore when these disruptions occur. So I'm super excited about ChatGPT and other forms of AI and how it can supplement to us as our aspirations to work as better together and our desires to work better together as human beings.
That's beautiful. Supplement our aspirations to work better together. I love that. Thank you. Our last question about the future is looking to our upcoming webinar series. So Barry, can you give us a sneak peek into what topics we're going to cover in that series?
Yes, I will. There are 4 webinars that are happening in August and September. The first is called Better Together, Collaborative Intelligence at Work, and we're going to define more what collaborative intelligence is. We're going to describe some of the common pitfalls in all collaborative endeavors, and also practice a few muscle building techniques that I mentioned before. In the second webinar, called Through the Looking Glass, expanding awareness for a better collaboration that Susan was pointing to, We're going to be looking at the types of collaborative awareness, including a greater awareness of what's going on with ourselves and with each other. And how do we go about developing that awareness and practice a few awareness building skills. In the third webinar, we're going to move into the area of leveraging differences. We're working with people who we're all different. We're all special and different. And we're going to talk about what we think is the next stage or the next milestone in DEI training. And that is really beyond appreciating each other as ourselves and practicing the golden rule. Ways that we can leverage our differences in day-to-day collaborative routines. Or as Susan was pointing to before, the differences that can really make a difference, to get out of our box around how we work with others that are different than us. We're going to practice coming up with a plan for leveraging differences on your team. And then the last webinar is a panel discussion with all the presenters on the previous discussions. You'll have a chance to ask the experts questions around your own collaborative teamwork challenges and the learning strategies that you're using to help your organizations develop themselves as better collaborators. It'll be a very informal coffee table kind of chat. And we look forward to seeing you.
Wonderful. Well, I, for one, am really excited about this new program and about the upcoming webinars. This has been just a fascinating conversation. I want to thank my guests, Barry Rosen and Susan DeGenering, for sharing your insights today about collaborative intelligence and all of the possibilities for it. I think it's really represents a big opportunity for this current moment that we're in. Thank
you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel.
Lovely to have you both. So those of you listening, if you want to learn more about collaborative intelligence, as Barry said, we'll dig more deeply in our free upcoming webinar series. And you hear it here that you'll gain skills to practice, particularly around self-awareness and leveraging differences. So I think there'll be a lot of value in those programs. I look forward to them. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.